thank you everyone for joining me. I'm truly excited. This is a significant day for me personally because I'm a little bit shifting my focus to more education about what I do and not only things I've created or mainly. So I'm very excited about this opportunity. I've been interested in cancer for decades. I'm named after, I usually don't tell my personal story. But I thought, wow, people, it'll be nice to know I'm named after my grandfather, Isaac. They died from stomach cancer at the age 50. 10 of his 12 siblings got killed by Hitler in the Holocaust. And we were never told about it until my grandmother died at the age 98. On her grave, my mother told us about it. We were shocked. So he had to stomach all of this. And not surprisingly, he had stomach cancer. A little bit of a connection between trauma and how it goes to certain organs is an important point. And 2 weeks before the end of medical school, my father was diagnosed with kidney cancer. And I remember I was in the CT room with the radiologist seeing that he has many, many metastases in his lungs, which I did not tell my family. And so I quit medical school 2 weeks before the end. I was doing OBGYN. And that's why if you need OBGYN advice, don't come to me. I'm not the right guy. Luckily, I was good enough of a student. They gave me a special test and I was able to finish medical school. And then I shifted to focusing on working with my father, turning him macrobiotic, going to treatment with my Chinese medicine teacher, Dr. Jean-Marc Esselen. I was already doing Chinese medicine as part of training as a medical doctor, and it actually stopped the growth of the cancer. And then my father was one of the first people to get immunotherapy in Cornell, interleukin-2 plus LAG cells. It was the biggest and best response in the history to immunotherapy. Everything disappeared, including all his metastases. And about 3 years later, he had some recurrent starting. He flew in for treatments again, and he died in 20 minutes from pulmonary edema. Because of cytokine storm, which now I know that is caused by galectin-3, and I'm showing in my apheresis studies on removal of galectin-3 that I can reverse it. There's a little bit of a karma that many years later I found the solution, but that's part of the journey in life. So I do have some personal interest, and I've been focused on treating cancer for about almost 40 years. From an alternative, complementary, integrative approach. What drives me is an integrative approach. And while I was many times the person who developed many of the treatments that are now widely used, artesunate intravenous protocol, DCAIV, I developed the protocol and is on the first paper. In the United States, the only one who used to do whole body hyperthermia. In some other treatments, honocular IV is the only person in the world who ever done it. We can't do it anymore. Within all of this, being very innovative, and Ruby, who is here on this summit, was supporting me from the staff point of view. Over the years, with my practice of meditation and my understanding of Chinese medicine, I came to the realization and the understanding that it really requires in-depth understanding of the process. The more you understand the process, the more you can get with less dramatic or aggressive treatments. And the key is in integration. And sometimes integration means integrating Western and complementary treatments. And sometimes integration means that there are no conventional treatments, and the integration is integrating only complementary treatments. And the idea is to try to step away and really see the big picture. Look at the mind, look at the emotion, look at the psychology, look at the biochemistry, look at the location, look at the geography, look at the time of the year, look at the environment, look at the life goals of the person, look at their history, look at their genetics, look at their epigenetics, and try to develop a deep understanding, mainly by not having preconceived ideas. If you go to a doctor that knows in advance what he's going to do, from my perspective, it's best to change the doctor, because we really need to be open-minded. The patient, every person is an amazing story, every person. And the role of the healer is to give the space for the patient to unfold. And there's a process of healing, and there's a process of overcoming cancer. They generally support each other, but you can have amazing healing and the cancer will still win. And you will have amazing healing. But if you have healing on multiple levels, you will live a longer life, you will live a better life. So this is really a little bit about the philosophy of true integrative medicine, where the patient is at the center and anything goes. Conventional medicine goes, surgery goes, chemotherapy goes, shamanic healing and prayer goes. It's the right person at the right time, and not having preconceived ideas. Any resistance from the point of view of the doctor, from the point of view of the patient, needs to melt away. And within it, in-depth growing, discriminative wisdom, understanding to see what is really meaningful, what is substantiated, and what resonates with you. And when it resonates with you, does it resonate with you because of you are connecting with your deeper part, with your wisdom part, or is it resonating with you because it comes from a place of fear? Very different, sometimes very subtle to differentiate. So these are not easy things to ask every doctor to do. These are not easy things to ask every patient to do. It's a journey of learning for me, for you, for me as a doctor, as a patient, and together the synchronistic, the group energy is very important. Cancer is a disease that requires group support. So with this in mind, I have a very ambitious agenda today. I'm going to cover a lot of ground. In some level, when I was preparing and I kind of threw away my PowerPoint, despite the hard work of my staff who really put energy into it, and I really prepared the whole journey in bullet points. And hopefully we can get all of it done. I apologize if a lot of it will be fast. I think this is going to be available afterwards, the recording. You can listen to it again. And there's going to be an element of information that many of you are used to. You go to different summits, to different lectures, and there are going to be some pearls of wisdom from my experience, from my traveling all over the world, from my meditation practice. So use these also. If there is something that really resonates with you, that triggers an emotion, a movement in you, then sit with it, be with it, and let it percolate into your being. So I know it's more of an informational session, but being so subsumed and trained in meditation, I really can't separate it from talking about mundane details. It's the way I treat people, it's the way I live my life, and it's the way I want to educate others to be part of the journey. So with this, we can get going. Maybe some about more my formal background. I'm a physician, graduated from medical school in 1986. I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I have a Master of Science in Chinese medicine, and I'm trained vertically, starting from the age 15 when I lived in Korea and practiced Taekwondo with a Korean national team. They had to learn English, so I was lucky, and yoga and meditation. And through medical school, becoming a yoga teacher, learning shiatsu, organizing a Chinese medicine school to learn Chinese medicine, mainly acupuncture for 3 years. Then coming to United States, focusing on Chinese herbal medicine, classical homeopathy, and then integrating different healing modalities with very extensive training and learning and practice of meditation, with 10 years of spending half my day in meditation and half my day working, and 20 years of going to the mountains 2 to 3 months a year to meditate. And this is reflected in what I call now open heart medicine, what I teach. And within this context, today we are talking about what to do in the cancer journey. So again, we are going to go in a chronological order and question and answers if we have time. I thought it's an hour and a half, and then I found out it's an hour. So there's a lot to cover. If we have time, I'll answer some questions. And then next week on Monday, we have Ask Me Anything You Want. On Monday, same time. And on Wednesday, I'm going to do a session of open heart medicine. I'm going to introduce meditation in general and introduce some very basic elements of how to use meditation for healing. And this is something that you can actually take home with you. So I think it's important to know this. Okay, so going to the journey of the cancer patient. And one of the person who studied meditation with me for many years and was a cancer patient once told me, Isaac, you are the best person I met who can understand what is going through a cancer patient who didn't have cancer. You really, when you have cancer, it's a somatic experience. And each cancer patient remembers the moment they were diagnosed, because your set of priorities a moment before is completely shaken and thrown away. Right? I have my own experience as a supporting person coming home, and at 5:04 p.m., I remember the time, I called the professor of nephrology, who happens to be a friend, who was the dean of the medical school. And based on the ultrasound, we both, I'm as a student, he as my dean, agreed on the diagnosis, and my priority shifted away. I quit medical school. Right? People who have their own journey, they make big changes. So this shift, this big turmoil contains within it a huge opportunity, because what we are fixated as being important is thrown away. And now there's a new opportunity to organize things in a different way. Now, for many of you, it's already history. But why am I mentioning it? Because this process can repeat itself in multiple versions through our life and through our healing journey. What happens when you have a good scan? What happens when you have a bad scan? What happens, when you feel better? What happens when you feel worse? So all of these are dynamic processes, and the reason why it's important to understand them, they translate all the way to the cellular level. They translate all the way to the way how a cell produces energy. And cancer, as a basis, is a metabolic disease. The change of a cell into a cancer cell, the metabolic change, is a reflection of a change of the state of mind of the cancer cell. I look at cells in my approach as a living organism. This is why I want to spend time on this. This is part of what I feel I can make a contribution with. So once you really understand this and you know that life is not the same, it produces a priority shift. And the priority shift happens at the time of diagnosis. And ideally, it's a time to take a deep breath. Because seldom is cancer truly an emergency, like when you come to the intensive care unit with sepsis, or with acute kidney injury, or after a car accident. Sometimes it is acute lymphomas, acute leukemias, severe, organ failure from an advanced cancer, yes. But usually, there is a time, everything shifts, and there is a time to take a deep breath. And this is a challenging time, because at this moment, you are bombarded with your own turmoil of thoughts and feelings, and you are bombarded with advice from so many people who care about you and read this and heard this. And this can really add to being overwhelmed. So one of the things that is used in more the esoteric approach of Chinese medicine, based on the Book of Difficult Questions, the Nanjing, is that you make a priority list of what was important to you a moment before the cancer. And this is something you can go back and do. That's your first exercise. Take your time and write down what was important for you a moment before you got diagnosed with cancer. And then what was important for you a moment after you were diagnosed with cancer. And you will see a very different list. And the third list is what is your wish list if the cancer completely went away. And you want to see that your wish list is very different from your list before you got cancer. Because whatever you were doing before resulted in cancer, no matter why. And it may be that you had a great list and you've lived in a very toxic area, but then your wish list is going to be for you to move away. So you just want to see these processes of before, after, when I heal. And these are lists that you visit. And you visit them at moment of success, and often I visit them with patients before the end of their life. So that's an important process for us to see where are we going, because the body wants to survive. You know, I wrote the book, The Survival Paradox, and I'll just touch on it today. But the body will do anything it can to survive. And if the body knows that it has long-term plans, and we are genuine about them, it will do anything it can to live longer. That's important. It's a very powerful healing tool. So moving to this, we now come to the preparation phase. And again, the preparation phase is before we decide what we're going to do, but this repeats itself. It repeats itself if you're going to prepare for surgery, if you prepare for chemotherapy, if you're going to do some kind of fancy complementary alternative treatment, you're going to go and get some hypothermia or photodynamic therapy or certain IV treatments. So you're going to go to a detox center. Again, you are preparing yourself, but with the understanding that it's a complex journey. Cancer is a complex disease that includes infectious disease, toxins, emotional issues, psychological issues, genetic issue, epigenetic issues, and the effect of our disease on ourselves, on our environment, the effect of the environment and people around us on us. So all of this comes into factor. And then picking the right highway is very important. And for this, we need to be focused, and we need to understand what kind of investment, quote unquote, we have to put. And there are three kinds of investment that we have to put. And these investments affect other different energy systems in the body. We have to see how much time we are willing to put to address our cancer. And some, often people come and say, I will do anything I can to get better with cancer. You ask them how much time they have a day, they will say 15 minutes. Well, not exactly anything you can when you have 24 hours in a day. But for them, that's in their perspective, the time they can put in. Well, if you're doing 15 minutes, how hard are you willing to work? Do you want to walk just when the weather is perfect? Or are you willing to climb up the hill when it's very hot and humid? Are you willing to work hard? Are you willing to push yourself? And what is your budget financially? How can you address it? So the budget, for example, in Chinese medicine relates to the lungs. The effort has multiple organs, including the kidneys and the liver in some way, and time, perception of time relates to the kidney, to the bladder, different organs in the body. So depending on which organs are strong, which organs are weak, we'll have different strengths and weaknesses. But these are very important for our decision making. For example, if somebody has limited financial resources and they're about to start a very long journey of a chronic disease, let's say chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and they have a certain amount of budget, X, you don't want to spend it in the first 2 months on a certain treatment. You want to space it out properly. And if somebody's inner resources are limited, then you rely more on outside treatment. People who decide I'm not going to do conventional medicine have to be ready to put a lot, assuming it's the right decision. It's rarely the right decision, if ever, but sometimes. But people who make this decision have to make sure they have the inner resources, the community, the financials, and the deep breath to go through the whole journey. So these are very important decisions that are often overlooked. And we jump into something, and then the outcome is not what we expected. So now when we have this as an understanding, as a basis, we look at our strategy. What is our healing strategy? And the first most important differentiation is it short term or is it long term? It is short term if there is a high probability for cure. For example, localized stage 1 breast cancer, either triple negative or estrogen positive, hormonal positive, let's say with BRCA negative, just to add another angle, and HER2 neu negative, cure rate is over 90%. Never come back. You put everything into the first set of treatments. If it's just surgery, if it's surgery with radiation, if it's surgery with hormonal therapy, what supportive treatment, what diets, what detox, what IV support, you put everything. So in the next 2-3 months, you will have a complete transformation. Complete transformation. Because if you really improve your odds and you can bring it from 92% to 96%, you cut your chance to die by 50%. That's an incredible investment, incredible. But if you are dealing with a metastatic disease that is going to require a lot of treatments where the prognosis is not great and we never give up, then you are into a longer journey. You can't throw everything into the first few weeks because it's not only about the tumors becoming smaller or even disappearing. It's about enough of a change to change the metabolism of the body, the behavior of the cells, and to maintain it on a long-term basis. So otherwise, if we jump when we have a more advanced disease or disease that requires long-term care, and we jump all in with our limited resources, it leads to exhaustion on all levels, even if we get a temporary response. And this is a responsibility of the patient, and this is a responsibility of the caregiver, of the healer, of whoever is guiding your treatment strategy. The other part is that you want to define what is success for you. Is success for you can be objectively, the tumor disappearing, the tumor getting smaller, feeling better physically, or what is personally, I really want to be alive and be well to get to my daughter's wedding, which happens in about 18 months. And I want to have a certain amount of time. I want to use this to have a certain personal experience. I want to finish learning certain things. I want to use this as a way to heal and to shed off things I never was willing to let go of. So each of you has your recipe, your roadmap, and it's your roadmap. It's not my roadmap. It's not anyone's roadmap. It's even not your family's roadmap. And as you get ready for it, it will affect the way that you build your team. And the last part is be open-minded. Be open that things that you think don't have value because you're opinionated, not because you read them. It's possible that you are not correct. So every time you limit your possibilities, you say, oh, I don't want to hear about meditation, and I don't want to hear about these supplements, and I'm not going to do conventional medicine because I know somebody who really suffered from the treatment. Every time that we limit our openness, we cause restriction. And every time we cause restriction, we reduce flow. And every time we reduce flow, we reduce oxygen coming to our body, and especially to problematic tissues like the cancer. And every time we reduce oxygen to the cancer tissue, we are making the cancer more aggressive. So being open, I had patients who were very resistant to chemotherapy, where when they did chemotherapy, it was the most profound healing experience. It actually felt better because they shedded a very big resistance. And some of my most amazing patients used to, how they would dialogue with the opinionated oncologist, was very, very creative because they had a different belief system and they knew it's just a part of the picture. So each of you is going to have your own way of addressing these things. The next part is that you have to build your team. And when you build your team, you want to focus on the best person for each task. For example, if you're having surgery, you want to get the best surgeon. They don't have to believe in alternative treatment. They don't have to believe in diets. They don't have to give you advice about supplements. They have to provide you a great preoperative care and evaluation, very careful staging, very careful understanding of the pathology and how it's best addressed. They have to have great surgical skills. We don't care how famous they are, how nice they are. They need to have good hands and good eyes and good coordination. And they need to have great post-operative care. So a good surgeon in a lousy medical center is a liability. And usually you have some time to check them out. That's the time when you take a deep breath and you almost interview people. Sometimes it is an emergency, no? My father needed surgery immediately because the kidney cancer was throwing metastases to the lungs. Happened to know the #1 surgeon in the country for hypernephriomas, and we were able to get in the next morning, and within 24 hours, my father's kidney was out. But sometimes it takes longer period of time. So this is important. But in the same time, you're going to find the people who are going to give you psychological support, emotional support, help you with your nutrition. You're going to build a team. And if possible, you want to find a person that is part of your medical team who does not have an agenda. Meaning they don't subscribe to a certain treatment. They don't try to do something that they have to do because they spend a lot of money buying this equipment and have a lot of stuff. But somebody you can sit with and you feel, wow, I can just be myself. We can brainstorm, we can heartstorm, we can connect. And one, it will allow me to reach better decisions. And two, as important, it will allow me to connect with the deeper part of myself. And I know from my experience, and often I would get it from my staff, people will come to consult with me, and sometimes there would be good news that I have to share with them, and sometimes there will be bad news. But even when it was bad news, very often people will walk out of the time with me feeling happier, almost being in a high, because they were allowed to connect with who they are. And when you connect with who you are, and you let the restrictions dissolve, you see that there are so many possibilities. There are always choices. There are always possibilities. Eventually, we have to make a decision. And this idea that we have different decisions to make, that we have choices, that our voice is a leading voice, empowers us, gives us energy, and helps us keep moving forward. And the other part in building a team is to scrutinize who is on your team. And there are going to be a lot of people that will want to give you advice. And almost all of them, sometimes all of them, is because they mean well, they want to help you. And people often don't understand the gravity of giving advice to a cancer patient. It's life and death. It's very, very important. I mean, doctors often don't understand that every word we say and the way we say it is going to have an impact. I know I failed on this many times. It took me many years to become more skillful, to give the space. Part of it, for example, at Amitabha Clinic, is the way the clinic is set. For people who were at Amitabha, the waiting room is the center of the clinic. It's the biggest space, it's the nicest space, and all the treatment rooms are serving the people in the middle. And the patient has a bigger chair than me. And I don't sit behind a desk. There are no diplomas. I don't have a white coat. Now with the COVID, we had to dress, in scrubs, which I kind of like. It's blue scrubs. I like the blue color. It's the healing color. But, it's Isaac and whoever it is. And there is a personal relationship. So when you build your team, try to have such a person where you can tell your doctor, you really look tired today. Are you okay? And not be afraid, oh my God, if I ask him a question, he'll get upset at me and fire me, which is one of the most ridiculous things that happen all the time and really breaks my heart. So now we covered the building the team. And again, it's going to serve you wherever you are. You're going to have a chance to exercise this. Even if you don't have cancer, you're going to have a chance to actually exercise it because it's going to repeat itself in many situations. The other part is that we have to recognize in life, we have ups and downs. In our cancer journey, we have ups and downs. So we have to appreciate every moment we have. One of the things for people who have cancer, who get diagnosed with cancer, they appreciate every moment. So we appreciate every moment, but we judge our progress over a larger unit of time. Not only by how we did this morning compared this evening, but sometimes it takes a few weeks, sometimes a few months to start noticing the difference. So it's a combination of being aware and present on a moment by moment basis and having a perspective which is bigger. When we have a perspective that holds a bigger space, a bigger expand of time, then naturally whatever is inside has more space and it slows us down. When it slows us down, it slows our metabolism. It supports a shift from anaerobic glycolysis to normal metabolism. It supports a shift from a cancer-induced metabolism to a normal metabolism. That's part of what happened in the initial training of meditation. So we want to do it in our perspective of time. And we have to understand, we can feel great and the cancer can grow. Because we may be supporting the way we feel, but whatever we are using for nourishment can potentially also nourish the cancer. So there's a dialogue between how we feel and how the cancer feels. And this dialogue is one of the most important therapeutic principles. It's okay to affect our own health adversely by 2 levels if we can beat up the cancer by 5 levels, because over time we'll open a gap. And once there is enough gap and we feel much better than the cancer, then we shift into nourishment. And this principle happens on a longer term and also happens on a cycle by cycle treatment, for example, during a 3-week chemotherapy cycle, or immunotherapy cycle, or a detox cycle, or a lunar cycle, monthly cycle. So we use all of these to create a dynamic flow. So it is understanding about the balance between promoting our health and attacking the cancer. And it's very important when the cancer goes out of control, the most important thing is to stop the cancer at any cost with any treatment. Because if we don't stop the growth of cancer that is synchronizing out of control, then we won't have a lot of opportunity to deal with other stuff. So we have to prioritize. It's a concept called in Chinese medicine, stems and branches. We deal with the manifestations, and then we deal with the roots, with the cause of the issues. And the ideal is to try to deal with them together as much as possible. Okay, great. Okay, I hope you are still with me. Okay. So I want us now a little bit to take a journey into the cancer cell and to really try to understand and look at the cancer cell. So we really have to understand that the cancer cell is a cell in perpetual survival mode. It's a cell that, different than a regular cell, lost its communication with its neighbors, which is community. We are made from tens of trillions of cells. And each of these cells, every second, has up to 1 million reactions. Okay, so 1 million times, let's say 30, 40 trillion. It's a number we can't even comprehend. It's not million, it's not billion, it's trillion. Yeah, million times million. And all of these endless reactions create one person, one economy. And in this economy, the cells have an interdependent support. In order for them to survive, they have to make sure the other cells do their job. And within it, the cell recognize their impermanent, ever-changing nature. They come into being, they function, and they die in order to allow another cell to regenerate. A cancer cell is a cell that lost its understanding that it's part of a bigger community and decide it's going to survive at any cost, individually. It separates from the community. It no longer listens to the neuroendocrine system, to the nervous system, to the need of the system. By creating a microenvironment, by creating its own signaling. And as such, when it becomes self-focused and self-absorbed, it starts duplicating in order for it to survive, to create more of itself, right? It's a monoclonal process. It's one single cell that starts duplicating. During the very quick duplication, there are genetic alteration and mutation that makes it more complex to treat. And as such, eventually the cell wants to survive. Is a very strong drive. The stronger the drive, the more aggressive the drive, the more the metabolisms become abnormal, the more the cancer grows, the more it evades other areas, the more it causes damage until it kills the host and itself. So cancer is not a winning proposition for the cancer cell. But unfortunately, the cancer cell forgot its harmonious role. But we really have to recognize that the two ways that a cancer cell can stop being a cancer cell is one, if we kill it, and two, if it reverses itself into a normal cell. For example, we often see that patients who have a biopsy for prostate cancer, and they have a Gleason score, let's say, of 8 or 9. Let me just lower my heater. I'm getting excited, so I don't need so much outer heat. So a cancer patient has a diagnosis from a biopsy of a certain aggressiveness of prostate cancer. And the rule of thumb is you will usually find a more aggressive tumor when you do the surgery because there is more tissue to check. Very often when they go on a supplement protocol, especially when they are trying to block galectin-3, our survival drive protein, very often at biopsy, I would say, more often than not, maybe, we'll see a reduction in the aggressiveness, which means that the time that the tumor was taken out, it is less aggressive. And this has a major effect on prognosis. How did it happen? Through our lifestyle and diet and supplement and other methods, we created a safer, more nourishing environment that the cell was able to reduce its alertness, to reduce its fight, to reduce its inflammatory elements, and as such became less aggressive. Instead of running, it started walking. And as a result, it changes the outcome for a long term. That's an example of a cell going in one direction. There are certain supplements that will push this, vitamin D, vitamin A, things like curcumin and quercetin and modified citrus pectin and onochiol and berberine, metformin, things that change the metabolism of the cell. And we want to apply them as part of our strategy. But for example, a little bit to throw you an example about it, if you are taking a strategy of killing cells, cancer, then you don't want to in the same time use strategy of redifferentiating cancer, because it's harder to treat somebody who is walking compared to treat somebody that is running. And that's why the treatment have to be dynamic. We have a whole section about it. And the last part, and this is only the overview, believe it or not, I apologize, but I told you I have an ambitious agenda for today, is to understand the role of the mind. It is last to talk about, but it's not the least. Because our mind especially connects to our infinite healing potential, to our heart. Our heart contains the potential for everyone and anyone to become a miracle. And when we have cancer, our concept, our belief system have been shaken enough that there is a crack in our fixation, that there's an opportunity to open up and to connect to deeper layers of ourselves. And this doesn't relate to belief system. It doesn't relate to religion. It doesn't relate to race or gender. It's simply connecting with deeper levels of who we are as human beings, as living sentient beings. And there's a real opportunity there. And this is what I call open heart medicine, the infinite healing potential of love and compassion. It's what I teach, and it's what I'm going to emphasize in the next few years. And we'll taste it next Wednesday, and please feel free to share with others, even if they are not in the cancer journey. But on January 27th, I'm going to do a free all-day Zoom meditation and healing from the morning to the evening. So you got the announcement. It's 2 months from now. You got time to block. It's a Saturday, so it's convenient. I think it's a Saturday or a Sunday, one of these days. And then we'll go through this journey. The more people come, the more powerful it will be. And this is something I've been teaching for years, for decades. And it's remarkable what happens. So we will touch on this. And after this one day, it will give you the basis that you can use. So I think that my wonderful team created a waitlist page for this that they will share with you. And also, I taught mainly abroad for many years, face-to-face retreats. I know I've been promising to do this for years, but I'm finally doing it in Hawaii in September 18 to 21, 2024. There are very limited spots. We're going to do a 4-day meditation and healing retreat, and I'm flying in some of the people who have studied with me for many years and have helped me. And it's a combination of an intense regimen with specific diet, with exercise, with meditation, of course, with teaching, with yoga, with qigong, with the beautiful ocean of Hawaii. And we are packaging it in a way that even once it ends, people can stay for the same night, and the next morning we'll still meditate together. And then we arrange a special cost for people to stay a few more days so they can really unwind. So this is where amazing things happen, but we can taste them in a 1 day. It is going to be offered for free. So there's no cost, remember. So now it's only time and effort. You see, I took the cost out of the formula. Now you put your time and effort. That's one thing. And it can be an hour and a half next week, or it can be a whole day. So each one with whatever they can. If we can't afford to fly, then we can put more effort. In time, we listen carefully and we practice it. So there are different levels for each of us. So each of you, each of us, finds the formulation that works for them. And we respect our ability to do this, and we respect other people. Whatever they can do is fine, wherever they are. The whole idea that whatever you're doing, can you push a little bit more? Can you take the next step? That's really the key things. And again, what's unique about this specific open heart medicine is that it's a multi-layered approach. The only reason why I teach is because over these decades of learning and training and meditating and treating some of the greatest meditation masters in the US, in Asia, in the Himalayas, I was privileged and lucky to be exposed to very unique esoteric knowledge that I translate to very simple language, to Western terms, even if I'm trained more traditionally. And I find that this, with understanding of cellular biology and physiology and Chinese medicine and all this crazy blend that I've traveled through for decades, for almost 50 years now, it produces a powerful mixture. and I feel an obligation to really share it. It's my third act. And a lot of it is reflected through the concept of the survival paradox. So I want to just touch the survival paradox very briefly. So the survival paradox is a paradox because what makes us survive is what makes us sick, what causes suffering and pain, what shortens our life, what drives our acute illnesses and our chronic illnesses. So it's important to really, and that's really the profundity of the paradox. And this paradox is what drives our response, our inflammatory response, our cytokine storm. Inflammation is not a cause for anything. Inflammation is a response to our survival drive. Because we are innately wired to survive, it's automated in us through the autonomic nervous system. Right? If I made a big noise now, you will be startled. The sympathetic system is on. Heart rate goes up, breathing rate goes up, the vascular system contracts, the kidney shuts down, and we use energy and take it away from the digestion, and we start survival process. So we have the nervous system effect, immediate through the sympathetic system, and it's followed by a metabolic response, by survival protein. Galectin-3 is the key protein that I researched for almost 30 years, but it addresses this survival response. So when we go into sympathetic mode and we fight, that's the inflammatory process. It creates heat. It creates degradation, right? If you take anything, even refined, and you grind it for a long time, it loses its characteristics. If you wash the same shirt a million times, it loses its characteristics. It becomes undifferentiated. The more undifferentiated the cell, the more it can differentiate, the less it can differentiate its role as part of a community, the more aggressive the cancer. So we talked about the inflammatory response, that is the fight response, and the flight and fear response is hiding, running away, creating isolation. Isolation creates a microenvironment. Biochemically, it's created by the lattice formation, by a pentamer of galectin-3s binding to each other and bringing in inflammatory ligands, inflammatory compounds, growth factors, and now the cancer has a different environment, a microenvironment. It no longer responds to messages from the body. That's why we need to dissolve it. That's the use of modified cytospectin on a very simple way. And that's why there is such solid data on modified cytospectin in cancer and very high percentage of benefit. But we also want to do it in a deeper, sustainable way by addressing lifestyle, diet, and by addressing our mind. Shifting from a place of resistance, of fight, to a place of acceptance and transformation. And since this shift is infinite in its potential, its reflection, its expression is love and compassion. And love and compassion is endless. You can never have too much love and compassion. There is a saying that the Dalai Lama says, it's as vast as the sky. It means that our potential for transformation and healing is as vast as the sky. There's no boundaries. So this is why it's important to understand the survival paradox and understand how to address it very simply, just by taking galectin-3 blocker, modified cytospectin with dozens and dozens of published papers, but in a deeper way to understand that we can melt the survival paradox at its essence through connecting with our heart. And this is really why I'm talking to you today. So once we have all of this, we are now ready to select and discuss different treatments. So now I'm finally getting to treatments. And I have a question. Maybe Darcy or Ruby can text me. When do I have to finish? One thing that I see is that people are not leaving. That's a good sign. So I'm not doing so bad. But just tell me if I do have to finish on the hour, I can go a little bit more. So until I get an answer, I will keep going. And worst comes to worst, people who have to leave will just listen to the rest afterwards. So when we select treatment, and I'll try to go quickly enough, but not too quickly, because then it's meaningless. There are a few principles in treatment selection. One, where are you on the timeline of your healing from cancer journey? Are you just pre-diagnosis? Are you post-diagnosis? Okay, I got my answer. Thank you. So are you already after a number of treatments? So this will affect the selection of treatments. Are you in the place where you can really get cured? Is it more about, maintenance? There are different principles. Then, what kind of treatment are they? Are they high-tech, more sophisticated, more expensive treatment? Are they low-tech treatments, like more diet and lifestyle and sleep habit, sleep hygiene, and activity during the day? What is the cost of the treatment and availability? And what kind of scientific support the treatment have? Scientific support is important, but it's not mandatory. It has to have some kind of scientific logic, but beware of statistics. A treatment that works on 99% of people is not helpful if you are in the 1%. And the treatment who works for 1% of the people is very helpful if you are in the 1%. So it's really about individualizing. So often within the statistically randomized clinical trials response rate, we can stratify ourselves and know where do we fall in this realm. Like we have a greater than average chance to respond, a better than average, or a much better than average. And that's where complementary treatments really happen. And then, is your treatment a standalone? Is it complementary? Is it integrative? All of this will change. The other principle is the dynamism of the treatment. Very important. You want to make sure your doctor pays attention to it. Treatment have to synchronize with the treatment cycle. So the certain supplements, you will take breaks based on your cycle of treatment. You will change your dosages. For example, the classical example is chemotherapy. Chemotherapy, let's say a 3-week cycle, or immunotherapy. What can we do in the beginning to improve circulation so the drug gets everywhere? What can we do to enhance the response? Then what can we do to detoxify the side effects of the treatment? And then what can we do to nourish and prepare the immune system, if it's immunotherapy, the body for the next cycle? So this will change dosages and timing. It's interesting, our beloved older of 3 dogs, Simba, has a very aggressive cancer. And he responded very well, unexpectedly well, to chemotherapy because of the combination of supplements and protocol we built together. But every day he has a different protocol. Even him and his after treatment. So he's getting 4 days of attacking, 2 days of recovery, and 4 days of anti-angiogenesis. And then sure enough, his hair grew back, he's doing great, he's more agile than he was for years, he's almost 11 years old, a very big dog. He already crossed his average age. So it's an example, even in our pets, how we are dynamic about what we do. And then now we go to specific treatment and we'll touch on them. So one category that for some reason is not used enough is traditional Chinese medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine probably has more body of evidence than any other complementary treatment. It's highly available. It's affordable. It has been practiced for millennia. There are like 60 peer-reviewed journals of Chinese medicine published just in China. And it includes more than acupuncture. So one outcome in the attempt to integrate Chinese medicine into conventional oncology, that unfortunately often is done for marketing purposes, is to take treatment that are not threatening or challenging for the oncologist. And as such, acupuncture is acceptable. When it comes to herbs, it's usually a no-no. But herbs have compounds, and herbs are living creatures. They have a life, they grow, they have a cycle of life, they have wisdom in them. So herbs very often have an active compound and have other ingredients that will balance the side effect of the active compound. This is the wisdom of plants. And it can get more sophisticated when it's built in formulation. But even, for example, artemisinin has a lot of research. But if you look at Artemax, a product I developed, it has artemisinin. It has a whole plant, Artemisia annua, and it has a 10-to-1 extract of Artemisia. So Artemax have these 3 compounds. When you look at the ability of this to kill cancer cell lines in vitro, compared to the same milligram, the same concentration of artemisinin, so the same artemisinin in the Artemax and in pure artemisinin, we need 1/4 of the dose to create the same kill with Artemax. But we know clinically, at least observation-wise, that we're getting less side effects because Artemisia annua has some properties of liver protection. Artemisinin is very hard on the liver. It can cause chemical hepatitis, which is reversible. That's an example of integration within a compound. Usually it works like this, not always. We tried it with honocule and we found out that honocule on its own is more effective than honocule together with the magnolia bark, because some of the other compounds have some allergic reactions. So that's an example how pure honocule becomes very, very potent. So there are some specifics, but this is an important principle. And TCM is mainly supportive, but it can also have anti-cancer effects. There are certain classical herbs, Baichoshechetzar, Banjilien, a few other ones that are very powerful anti-cancer effects. And the way I approach them, often they are in my formulation, for example, in breast defense, but there will also be herbs that I will feed the mushroom that we grow, for example, microphyte. Yeah, it's nice for me to reflect on this because I've now no longer, I finished my business involvement with ecoeugenics. I passed it on and I'm focusing more on aphoresis and meditation, but it's an opportunity for me to reflect on these decades of formulation and creating things that are helping many people. So the other part that is very important is dietary strategies. And I want to give you some key principles for dietary strategies because there are many approaches. There are certain approaches that are really, there's a consensus, and if not, it's a problem. One, low glycemic index. Cancer feeds on glucose. That's why when you have a PET scan, the more active the cancer. PET scan is based on radioactively labeled glucose. When you have a more active cancer, the PET scan lights more because the cancer is consuming more glucose, more than regular inflammation. That's how they differentiate. The other part, intermittent fasting allows autophagy and cell repair and an attempt of the cell to come to normal metabolism. So these are like golden principle. The third principle, be dynamic in your use of diet because you don't want the cancer to figure out the diet. When ketogenic diet became very popular in 2010, and I was teaching the integrative oncology module, I was one of the team of the faculty in 8-4M, and on the stage, I warned people from overusing ketogenic diet. Because if ketogenic diet was so good, it would be our main diet, not our alternate survival diet. Ketogenic diet is a survival diet, and I explained this. I didn't mention about it. I explained this in the survival paradox. The survival paradox is really a paradigm shift. It really explains the whole view of health and disease and well-being, to transform it. But it's cancer focused. That's what I do. So the main chapter is cancer. Almost all the examples are cancer. The wide variety of protocols are cancer related because it's kind of what I know how to do. So in this sense, ketogenic diet has a role in the right time. For example, if you are going through radiation therapy, it's a great time when you are being irradiated to be in a ketogenic state, because then it will open the mitochondria and will make the cancer cell much more sensitive to radiation. So for some people, it may be too hard to do all the time. So for example, if you have your radiation Monday through Friday, and you start a water fast on Sunday after lunchtime, by the time you get your radiation on Monday, you're already in a ketogenic state. And then you continue with a calorie-restricted ketogenic diet. And if you can do it for only 72 hours, and you stop on Wednesday after your radiation, you just did ketogenic diet 3 out of 7 days. That's 42%. But you got 3 out of 5 days of benefit, 60%. That's a great return on your investment. So that's an example of modifying a diet. Now, if you can push all the way to Friday, and then you give yourself 48 hours to eat more low glycemic with more calories, it's fine. But you have to weigh what happened if I lose weight. What happened from the fact that so many pesticides and toxins are fat soluble. So if you're eating ketogenic diet, no matter where you buy it, you're going to feed yourself with toxins that may drive cancer. So all of these have to take into consideration. By the principle of low glycemic, gluten-free, most probably, for almost all people, and intermittent fasting, even 14-hour fasting, 10 hours eating, ideally 3 hours between last meal and going to sleep. You can do 16-8. You can do 18-6 if you eat enough during the 6 hours, that's great. But even 14-10, even having your last meal at 7 p.m., if you go to sleep at 10, and you have your first meal of the morning at 9 a.m., if you're very hungry, you take a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, organic, put in hot water or green tea and drink. You get fat-based calories. It doesn't throw you out of the autophagy, of the shutdown of the mitochondria, and of the opening of the mitochondria. You are creating a repair process. So there are many different protocols. I actually review them in my book, so I don't have time for it. I'm resisting getting carried away because each of these topics can be an hour. The other part that is important I want to touch is intravenous therapy. So intravenous therapy has a long history. It has clear benefits. It's often high cost. And within it, there are treatments that are more substantiated, treatments that are less substantiated, and treatments that are driven by popularity and by availability. So I think that the most substantiated long-term treatment is vitamin C IV. And nobody really understands completely how vitamin C works, the different aspects, but at high concentration, it does have some oxidative effect. So it can be supportive of oxidative pressure. And it also has a remarkable detoxification effect, including pulling out heavy metals. So it allows the body to better repair itself. And it's a very good treatment. And for most people, it's beneficial. It doesn't have as much of a curative effect. And there are certain cancers where it has less of a curative effect, such as prostate cancer. One of the controversial treatments is glutathione. German integrative oncology does not use glutathione. Logically, you don't want to use glutathione because you're aiding the cancer in its survival. But there are some exceptions, especially, for example, if you're getting treatments that are damaging to the heart, create enormous oxidative stress, then towards the end, let's say towards the end of adriamycin cycle, on day 18, you may want to give vitamin C with glutathione just to protect the heart so it doesn't get this oxidative damage. It creates heart damage over time. Ozone therapy is very popular. Historically, 30 years ago, using ozone would equate to losing your medical license. Now, because it's hard to get IV nutrients and ozone is generated in the clinic, it became the most popular treatment. It's kind of amazing. It has some evidence, some growing evidence, And actually, rectal insufflation is one of the ozone treatments that has more evidence than any other treatment, and you can do it at home. And it has extensive use right now, a little bit overused. And just watch what it's doing to you and be very discriminating. And if it doesn't feel right, it means it's not right. And then there are some specialized IV treatments, artesunate, which used to be available and not available anymore. Then an attempt to use artemisinin instead. My limited understanding, artemisinin is not water soluble. And that's why it's harder to tolerate. And you're probably better off taking oral artemisinin with fatty foods. Honokiol, which is an amazing compound, a miraculous compound. Took me years to develop IV preparation. I had 14 cases that I was ready to publish. Decided to publish just 2 of them in Integrative Cancer Therapies, but only after I was not able to do it anymore because of regulatory issues. I mean, we did have an informed consent, and it was a part of a study we created in the clinic, but it's really a beneficial compound that I really hope and pray would be back one day. And people use curcumin IV, quercetin IV, and some other mixture of the above. There's a big growing interest in alternative immunotherapies and vaccine. They do have potential promise, but they're often immature and not ready to use, and they're very expensive. So you really want to really be discriminative. What are you going to get out of it? And what can you use this funding, this money for? Is there anything better than you can use? The other important category is heat and light therapies. I love heat therapy. So regional hyperthermia, which is not really as available in the United States, available in Canada actually, definitely has an benefit, especially with radiation therapy, especially locally, like on liver tumor and pancreatic tumor. Whole body hyperthermia that really was developed in Germany. Some of the greatest expert in hyperthermia, Dr. Dawas, Dr. Herzog, Ralph Klein, they all left us in the last 2 years. They're not here anymore, so I want to really thank them. They were all very good friends, and they made a huge contribution to the field. In principle, whole body hyperthermia has to be used with other treatments. It's not a standalone. Usually it's used with low-dose chemotherapy or with oxidative therapies, such as high-dose artesunate, honokiol, etc. Because you want to put a pressure on the cancer while the heat puts more pressure on the cancer, and the cancer is not able to handle it compared to a normal cell. But hyperthermia on its own can increase the level of heat shock protein and create resistance. And that's not a good outcome. And even with sauna, I had one case like this in my whole career, but I remember it well. I think it was, I'm not sure even, but to be a good doctor, you don't focus on your successes. You focus on your failures. That's where you learn. So a little bit I touched the use. There is a growing interest in photodynamic therapy. Photodynamic therapy is scientifically based. It's promising. It can be overused, and it requires a photosensitizer, and it's definitely an area that needs to be more used, not only by integrative medicine, but also in regular oncology. And into this, you put your mind-body treatments using your mind. It is free. It has a wide range of benefit, and it will change. It can change the outcome of all the other treatments. So it's really the element that can make everything different. So I want to encourage you to make it part of your life journey, of your healing journey, of your treatment journey. And within it, to close all of it together at 5:10, like I was instructed by my team, you want to understand that we are dealing with a complex process that includes self-treatment and getting support from the outside, and a combination of long-term strategy and short-term strategy. So with this, I thank all of you for attending and for hanging with me. And I look forward to seeing you again, hopefully on Monday, when it's going to be a question and answer session. So a lot of the questions from today, and especially on Wednesday, where I'm going to teach some meditation and explain how it works in relationship to the survivor paradox. And you can have a taste of it. Actually, I'm flying to Hawaii to do it from Hawaii, from a different environment. Hopefully it will work well with the audio. And our team will provide you with pages to write waiting lists for, so we'll let you know about the 1-day free Zoom retreat on January 27th with me, starting 9 a.m. California time, and the 4-day retreat in Hawaii in September. So thank you, and I wish you all the best in your journey.